In this video, I'm going to show you how to install a filter in one of our filter cartridges so that you can then install the filter and cartridge in an ultrasonic personal air sampler or home health box and collect a particulate matter sample. Here I have one of our 37mm filter cartridges. Inside this clear plastic case, I have a 37mm diameter Teflon membrane filter, and here I have a clean pair of tweezers. It's important to remember that this filter will be weighed to the nearest microgram to determine the mass of particulate matter in the sample. So we need to make sure that the filter doesn't become contaminated with dust, dirt, or other debris while being handled or stored. Always handle filters in a clean area. Today I'm working at a countertop that I've wiped clean with a damp cloth so that there's no dust or dirt on my work surface. Alternatively, if you're working at a surface that's not as easy to wipe clean, you can cover the surface with a fresh, clean sheet of aluminum foil. Additionally, you should never eat, drink, or apply cosmetics while handling filters, just like you wouldn't do those things while performing other common laboratory tasks. You've probably also noticed that I'm wearing a new clean pair of nitrile gloves. Now, I'm going to take my clean filter cartridge. I'm going to pry the upper and lower halves of the cartridge apart, and I'm going to set them down on my clean work surface. Again, never set the cartridge parts down on a dusty or dirty surface. This is what we refer to as the lower half of the filter cartridge, and this is what we refer to as the upper half of the filter cartridge. You'll notice that the upper half of the cartridge has this black O-ring running around the outside edge. And we're just going to check to confirm that that O-ring is present, that it's fully seated in its groove, and that it's not damaged, that we don't see any nicks or tears in that O-ring. Now I'm going to take this clear plastic case that contains the filter. I'm going to hold it level with the floor, and I'm going to open the case as gently as possible by using my thumbs to pry these tabs on the front of the case apart. I'm holding the case so that it's level with the floor, and I always try to open these cases as gently as possible because I really want to make sure that the filter doesn't fall out of the case onto the countertop or onto the floor. Remember what I said earlier about micrograms of mass and contamination. I'm not going to touch the filter with anything except my clean tweezers, and I'm not going to set the filter down on any surface that isn't the inside of this case or the inside of the filter cartridge. Now I'm going to take my clean tweezers. I'm going to reach into the case. I'm going to pick the filter up, and I'm going to grip it by the plastic support ring that runs around the outside edge. Be careful not to touch the Teflon membrane of the filter with your tweezers because you could poke a hole in the membrane accidentally, and then the filter would no longer be usable. You would have to throw the filter out and get a new one. Now I'm going to use the tweezers to pick the filter up, and I'm going to place it in the lower half of the cartridge like this, and then I'm going to immediately shut this case because I want to make sure that I don't get any dust or dirt on the inside of the case. We want to keep the inside of that case nice and clean for when we put the filter back in the case later. Now I'm going to take the upper half of the cartridge. I'm going to center it over the lower half, and I'm going to press it straight down until it stops. It's important to center the upper half of the cartridge over the lower half and press it straight down because you want to avoid dragging the upper half of the cartridge over the filter membrane because that could also damage the filter membrane. Now I'm going to press the two halves of the cartridge together all the way around the outside edge like this. And while I'm spinning the filter cartridge around like this, I'm going to check to confirm that the black O-ring on the upper half of the filter cartridge is no longer visible in this gap between the two cartridge halves. If that O-ring is visible, that means one of two things. That means that either the two halves of the cartridge aren't pressed together all the way, or it means that the O-ring has come out of its groove. Either way, if you can see the O-ring at this point, that means that the cartridge is not properly sealed. So you either need to press the cartridge all the way together, or you need to pry the cartridge back apart a little bit so that you can press the O-ring back into its groove if it's come out of the groove, and then press the two halves back together so that the cartridge seals properly. Once we've confirmed that the O-ring is no longer visible, that the two cartridge halves are pressed all the way together properly, we're all done. The filter is now installed in the cartridge. Now, we need to either install this cartridge in a sampler immediately, or if we're not ready to install the cartridge in a sampler, we need to place it inside a clean storage case like this one to protect the filter from becoming contaminated before we collect a sample.